So yes, we're rolling, right? We're rolling. Welcome again to the space. If this is your first time here, that means you've missed our first episode, and I encourage you to go watch that episode. The reason why I'll say you should go watch that episode is because in this space we talk about topics logically, and we discuss things with a rational motion behind it. And it's going to help you a great lot because I put a lot of thinking, a lot of research into it. Even though this is totally unscripted, the topics are well thought of to present to you whilst we discuss and we think through it. Today, I have an interesting topic for you, which I think you could name it based on how you feel at the end of it, but I gave it the name Temptations and Pleasures. So, Temptations and Pleasures, I'll tell you a story about Wallow. So there's this gentleman called Wallow647. He's on YouTube. You could check him out. He's an ex-convict. He served 20 years in jail from 2000 to 2020. So he came home last year, and he has a part of his vlogs where he called stories in a cell. That is what happened to him during his time in prison, and it's something that I want to share with you. So there was one time while I was in the yard, watching the guys play basketball, and an old guy, an OG, came to him, and he was like, "Hey, how many minutes, man?" So Wallo kind of looked at him and kind of ignored the first time because it was like, "Yeah, what is this guy talking about?" And then he went ahead to say again, "No, I'm talking to you. How many minutes?" So kind of confused, he looked at him and was like, "How many minutes? What?" And once again, he was like, "Man, how many minutes did it take you to get your residency here?" And Wallo was like, "Huh?" But then it came across very deep to him, even though he was still confused. He was like, "How many minutes it took to get my residency? I still don't get you." So the OG was like, and he was doing life imprisonment, right? So the OG was like, "Do you have your paperwork with you?" So the prisoners, they all have their paperwork with them in their cells. So Wallo was like, "Yeah, it's back in the cell." So they both decided to go back to the cell, and then he gave his paperwork to the OG. So OG kind of flipping through the paperwork, and it was like, "Okay, you rub this joint around to this. It took you about 3 minutes. You rub this second joint about 2 minutes. So in total, 5 minutes before you were caught by the police." So that is when the OG told him, "Okay, it took you 5 minutes to get 20 years in jail." So that was when Wallo thought about it and was like, "Yo, what the OG was saying was really deep," because then just 5 minutes of actions that he took landed him 20 years of his life in prison. So the OG looked at him and was like, "Yeah, mine was less than a minute." Like the OG had stabbed the guy, and it was just 30 seconds the guy had dropped dead, and he's spending life imprisonment. So that comes to say, with whatever we do, the consequences behind whatever we do should be well thought of before we execute the actions. So it's something that I've lived with all my life. Like if I'm about to execute something, if I'm about to take an action, and there's a lot of things going on now because of social media with the millennials, because there's a lot of people showing off things on social media. It pressures a lot of people to do things that they are not supposed to do. So when I'm out there taking actions, I always think, where is this thing going to land me? What are the consequences of this? Again, it applies to every aspect in your life, right? Because I remember my mom used to tell me one time, like, "Hey, it could just take 30 minutes of you spending with a girl that you never envision yourself spending the rest of your life with, and it might end you somewhere else you never want," right? So for example, you might get the girl pregnant, and it's someone you never in an ideal world ever think of even living with or even having a baby with. And this is something that you're going to live with the rest of your life if you have a baby with a person, right? And it could be anything else. It could be you falling for a psychopath or something. It could be anything. It applies to everything in life, right? So every action that you are about to take, you need to think about it, sit back and think, like, where is this thing going to land me? What are the consequences behind it? And it's something that I've lived with the rest of my life. So with this said, it also comes back to when you take positive actions as well. when you take a positive action, it tends to give you the benefits that you're going to reap for maybe 20 years. You might do something today and then you might reap it 20 years to come, the benefits of it. And that is the consequences. But mainly we do fall for temptations and pleasures, right? Because it's strong in us when you're out there partying, when you're out there doing drugs and stuff like that. It's strong because there's peer pressure. Everybody's doing it, so you tend to want to do it. Everybody's getting the money out there because they are doing it the illegal way because it's quick. You want to do it. They don't want to. They don't want to go through the process, and that is why you need to watch the first episode of my of this space, because I spoke about the process of reaping something, and then the process you go through, which is being ignored most of the time, for you to of sowing something, and the process you need to go through for you to reap it at the end of the day. So there's one thing that I think it was Ravi Zacharias that said, for all pleasure is but at a price. For illegitimate pleasure, you pay the price right after you enjoy it. For legitimate pleasure, you pay the price before. And it could be anything we pay the price. Like for legitimate pleasure, maybe you would have to wait. Maybe you have to save for some time before you could buy whatever you want to buy. But for illegitimate pleasure, because you want to get it really quick, or you want to get it the illegal way, you might go ahead, you might get what you want, but at the end of the day, you need to pay for the consequences right after some time, right? And it could be ending you up in jail. And I think this is one thing I talk about in my first episode that I would encourage everybody to go watch. That is, for everything that you sow, you reap with time. Whatever you sow, there's going to be a process to it. And that process is what is being ignored most of the time. So I encourage you to watch the one. And then if you enjoy it, still watch out for more topics where we talk about, we think through it logically, and also bring you rational thoughts about everything that we do. Thank you very much, and watch the next space.